we're very pleased to have our next guest with us right now, United States Senator Dave McCormick. Senator, thank you very much. We haven't talked to you in a while. I think you were candidate, McCormick, when we last spoke to you. You came into the U.S. Senate at a quiet time. Not a whole lot going on in D.C. these days, is it?
How are you, Doug?
Good.
Good to hear your voice. The best one can hope for, I think, is to have an opportunity to serve, and to have an opportunity to serve in times such as these. You know, I'm the 54th elected senator in Pennsylvania's history. I'm the 9th senator from West Point in America's history. And so when I walk down these halls, you know, to be the Pennsylvania senator is a big deal. You walk past these busts of, you know, these statues of Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln. So, you know, I really feel privileged to do it. But then you think about this moment. There's so much going on. The country is really in a period of a lot of change. And so to be part of that's a real honor.
Yeah, it's you have Washington experience. You're certainly not wet behind the ears, as they say. In fact, I heard at one of your initial hearings that you were questioning a witness at, and there was an analyst, I forget what station I was watching, and they came back and said, you know, that didn't sound like a rookie at all, questioning that witness. Yeah. But I guess
I don't know. Sometimes I get lost trying to find the bathroom. But you know, I have a great committees. On the Energy Committee, which is obviously critical to Pennsylvania. I'm on the Banking Committee, which is also critical to Pennsylvania and also oversees affordable housing. And I'm on the Foreign Relations Committee and the chairman of the subcommittee on the Middle East and counterterrorism. So I feel like I've got lots of opportunities to, you know, focus on issues that matter to the folks in our Commonwealth.
Yeah. And when you talk about the Energy Committee, of course, so much has been going on that issue now for many, many years. As one administration from another seems to differ on what type of energy this country should be using on a regular basis. There was an interesting court ruling recently against the state of California, which basically would have set a electric car mandate for the whole nation if that was allowed to go through. Not too often you hear about one state mandate affecting the whole nation, but that certainly would have, wouldn't it, if had that been permitted to happen?
Yeah, listen, I think the Democratic Party honestly went down a path where they let the environmental agenda hijack common sense, and there was EPA regulations that were mandating, you know, in the next several years, the majority of all vehicles purchased had to be electric vehicles. This was imposing huge cost on the automotive manufacturers. It was, you know, huge subsidies. And by the way, I'm for all forms of energy. I'm for nuclear, solar, wind. Everything is something I would embrace. But the subsidies were so extreme that they were pushing up prices. That's part of where the inflation came from. And they were opposed to basic things like fracking. And fracking, of course, is so critical to Pennsylvania's future. We're the 4th largest natural gas reserves in the world. But the crazy thing about fracking is that if you're an environmentalist, I consider myself an environmentalist, a conservationist. If you think climate change is an issue, which I do, and you think that we need to address that, the best way to address that is by really developing our natural gas and exporting that natural gas around the world, and it replaces much less environmentally friendly sources of power in China and India and places like that. So I think that the Democratic Party went off in a direction, and now there's a course correction going on here, recognizing that energy dominance, energy leadership in the world, being an energy superpower, is the key to Pennsylvania's future, but also America's future. I'll say one more thing. The other thing that's apparent is that we're in the middle of something incredible, Doug. Incredible. We're going to look back on this 5 years from now. We're going to say, my God, we lived through the most remarkable period of our lives because of artificial intelligence. It's changing everything. It's going to change our national security. It's going to change the way work gets done. It has huge implications. The one thing everybody agrees on is that the core, most important thing for winning the artificial intelligence race is energy. And so Pennsylvania is blessed with energy, but we're going to be at the forefront of that battle for AI supremacy. And to that end, just this week, in Berwick, which is 6 miles from where I grew up, went to high school, we announced a $20 billion deal where Amazon's coming into our Commonwealth and investing in AI data centers, or one in right next to where I grew up, a big campus of data centers, one in Bucks County. Stay tuned. There'll be more to come, I think, in southwestern Pennsylvania. I think this is part of Pennsylvania's future.
Yeah, I mean, the investments in Indiana County on a new power plant there, data.
Well, Homer City? Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Data.
Huge.
I think many years ago, I testified before the PUC when I was a lobbyist for the Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce about reopening a power plant because it was so critical. I basically got booed out of the room. And now we wish we had those power plants, don't we?
We sure do. And, the nuclear facilities, the 3 Mile Island facility, which is where my folks live in Enola, Microsoft did a huge big deal where they're building a data center next to that facility. And Berwick, where Amazon's going, there's 2 reactors there. And what the Constellation tells me, which is the big nuclear energy company that's based in Pennsylvania, is that they're finding ways with the next generation technology to extend the life of these reactors. So, we've got to have great baseline nuclear power. We got to invest in new nuclear reactors. There's new modular reactors that are a big part of the future. Natural gas, baby. We got to develop that natural gas. We got to embrace all different forms of energy. It's going to be the key to our economic leadership in the world.
Yeah, we're talking with U.S. Senator Dave McCormick here on the Afternoon Drive Show. And speaking of investments, the Amazon investment's huge, but the U.S. Steel, Nippon Steel deal announced by the president, not far from where I live and not far
Pretty
from where
great,
you live.
huh?
Yeah, in West Mifflin. Irvin Works. My father worked for 30 years at U.S. Steel. Clairton Works, made a great living. Our family did fine with that, but this is an investment that Andrew Carnegie couldn't even imagine back when he sold his
I'm so excited. Listen, I'm so excited about this. It's been something I've been very focused on. During the campaign, I raised some concerns about it, but I met a bunch of steel workers on the campaign trail, and I was up on Latrobe, and President Trump did a rally there, and I was on the stage, and I sat down next to the leadership of the 3 locals in the Mon Valley, and they said, "Listen, we want this deal. It's great for Pittsburgh, great for Pennsylvania." And I said, "Listen, if I win, I'm going to come sit down with you guys, and we'll talk." The first call I make, I said the same thing to them when they did another rally in Pittsburgh. So sure enough, I won, and I went and sat down with them. And obviously, there's 4,000 steel workers in the Mon Valley. This is critical. This is critical to Pittsburgh, critical to our region. And I was convinced that we needed to do this. I sat next to President Trump at the NCAA wrestling championships in Philadelphia, and I talked to him about it. And he was worried about it. He wasn't on board because he didn't like the deal. He didn't think it protected America enough. And he pushed and he prodded and he kept at it, and he made it better. And so now we've got protection of the Mon Valley. We got $14 billion of new investment. Doug, nobody would have ever imagined that. 2.5 of that in the Mon Valley. A new arc furnace. There's a possibility of a second arc furnace. There is a U.S. CEO. The company's based in Pittsburgh. A majority of Americans on the board. The U.S. government having some oversight of the board to make sure it makes decisions that are conducive to America's national security. It's just a much improved and a great thing for America. And what I told the president, I met with the president the day before he announced it, and along with Dan Muser and Mike Kelly, and said, "Listen, this is great for our economy.
Right.
It's great for our national security, but this is great for the folks on that." In that rally, those working families that you and I promised, both of us promised we're going to do everything we could for them. And that was the deal. That was the clincher for him. He wants to deliver on his promises to working families in Pennsylvania, and he did it.
Of course, the Valley took such a hit in the 80s. I know my father probably retired 10 years earlier than he normally would have because there were so many layoffs in the mid-80s from the United States Steel. Like, as I mentioned, he worked at U.S. Steel for 30 years at the Clairton Works. Made a very good living, provided us very well, and back in those days, my brother got the summer jobs, of course, but when it was my turn, they didn't do that summer employment anymore because the steel industry had shifted so much. You don't often think things like this are going to happen, but this is a 180, isn't it? I mean, this is a shift back to those days of prominent steel.
It really is. And, it's part of something bigger. It's part of, a renaissance, I think, for for manufacturing in America, but also for Pennsylvania. It's not the same manufacturing of the past. Even steel is radically more advanced than it was. But, I think we've learned that we've lost in some ways the ability to make things as much as we did when we led the world in this. And President Trump was really convinced that we needed to have a set of policies that with fair trade and tariffs when needed, with the support for industry and working families. The tax bill that we're currently considering is very conducive to small business growth. He was convinced that was where America needed to go, and I was convinced by that too. I grew up in Bloomsburg, the McGee carpet mill. There was 2,000 folks in the mill when I went to high school. Many of the kids I went to high school with, their families worked in the mill. It's 200 now. This has just been a story across Pennsylvania because of globalization, because of unfair trade practices, because we didn't have skilled workers. We lost, what was in many ways the heart of Pennsylvania's grit and opportunity for working families. That's what this is seeking to bring back, but it's going to be different.
Yeah.
These data centers are a great example for welders and pipe fitters and steam fitters and electricians. These are great projects, but they're radically different. I was at the shipyard in Philadelphia. Hanwha, which is a big Korean company, bought part of the shipyard. We're going to have the defense budget, I think, put a lot of money into that. These are great jobs, but they're autonomous ships. They're next generation. So it's in many ways the same, but in many ways it's different because it's going to be on the cutting edge of where America and the world is headed.
Yeah, when I was a kid growing up in the 60s and 70s, we played a lot of pickup baseball games, and the team we had all the time, we called it the U.S. Steel team because all of our dads worked for U.S. Steel.
Yeah,
in a variety of ways
man.
back in those days. Again, joining us on the Afternoon Drive Show, U.S. Senator Dave McCormick. Senator, thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to let you go. We know you got a busy schedule, but we appreciate your taking time to join us here. We look forward to talking to you again.